Okay, so I thought I would, like usual, I would just again start with a bit of an overview of what we're doing, what's going on here. So the first 5 sessions, and we're now on the third one, is about the cultivation of mindfulness. And we define mindfulness really just as the ability of maintaining focus upon a selected object. So it can be the breath, we've been working with the breath, but it can also be like a mental object or an external object. And then developing that skill so that we become, first of all, less tense when we're focused on something, so we don't clamp down and have to force ourselves. So we've been looking at how to counter that with relaxation. So really making relaxation the foundation of cultivating these attention skills. And then we also looked at, last time we looked at cultivating this ability of stability or focus, so that whenever we place our attention on something, it stably remains there and we don't get distracted and pulled away. And I think really those two, the tension and the scattered mind, those are really challenges for all of us in the modern world. And then today we're going to talk about clarity, which is the ability of not only being, we can be relaxed and focused on something, but without it's sometimes called like high definition awareness. We lack that clarity, the color, the vividness, the spark in our experience. So that will be this session today. And it's important to know also, sometimes it can seem like we're cultivating these things, or we're training them, or we're increasing them. But actually the fact is that our mind already have these qualities. So it's like, so sometimes there's this metaphor of the mind being like a glass of water, and then someone has put a lot of dirt and stuff into the water, so it looks all yucky and brownish. But we all know that if we remove that pollution, we will be left with a glass of water that is clear and still in itself. So it's not like we're not creating these qualities in the water. We're just removing some other stuff. So really another way of, rather than seeing this as cultivation or training, you can also see it as becoming more familiar with your mind that actually has these qualities of ease and stability and clarity or vividness in itself. So if we just let that manifest, it's actually already there. And knowing this or thinking about it this way can be a way of not trying too hard to get somewhere or create something, because in fact it's already with you. You already have it. You just have to make it manifest. So we've been using the breath to cultivate these qualities or discover them within our mind. And then next session and the session after that, we'll be using the mind instead as the object of meditation. So instead of focusing on the breathing, we will focus on the mind itself. So the things that were the distractions will now become the objects of our focus or attention. And that bridge can be a bit tricky, but it's also, once we start to get a hang of that, it's extremely powerful, because if we start to have this ability to observe our mind and all the thoughts and feelings and impulses and whatever's going on, then we don't necessarily have to be enslaved by it. So it's like our mind is tormenting us now. I don't know if it's just me, or if you can recognize that, you know, the worry and the concerns and the fears and the planning, and we get so caught up in it, and it's like we're the slave of our own minds. So when we start to cultivate this ability of just observing what's going on, we become the masters of our minds instead. So instead of just, you know, our minds pushing and pulling us around, we can remain stable and have this clarity and ease in relation to our own mind. And then the session 5 will then the object of our shamatha, our mindfulness, will be awareness itself, which is an even more subtle object, because it's basically, awareness is just a basic fact of being aware. So we'll rest our focus in the experience of just being aware, and yeah, we'll get to that. And again, that in turn will then serve as a bridge into the last part, which is then session 6, 7, and 8, which will be about applying mindfulness. So we cultivate this mind that is serviceable and useful, and then we can use that mind to look into our own experience and cultivate greater insight and greater wisdom. So we'll look at, in session 6, we'll look at change or impermanence. So we all know that things are changing, nothing is lasting. We know this intellectually, but emotionally we don't really know this, because whenever something changes, we suffer. If you know, if our new iPhone breaks, we get upset, even though we knew all the time that the only thing that could ever happen is that eventually it breaks, because impermanence is in everything. So then we can cultivate this ability of, instead of working against the flow of life, we can start to go with it and use it to our advantage more. And then we'll look at session 7, we'll look at dissatisfaction. What is the true source of our unhappiness and our unease? And we'll start to distinguish between temporary happiness, or sometimes what we call pleasure, and more lasting and stable and genuine happiness, and how the factor in that is actually our own minds. And then last session we'll look into how we exist as what is a person, what are we, who are we? So that's a big question for one session maybe, but just looking into we have this sense of being like this separate individual, and we have this sense of permanence, and but when we look at reality, we see that, okay, so there is no really separate individual. We're all part of this completely interdependent mesh and flow, and we're not separate. We're not independent from everything else. We're just a part of this ongoing. We're more like a process than a thing. And when we start to realize that, we can also let go of some of the things that causes fear and anxiety and problems for us. So we can maybe relax into something that is a bit bigger than this, you know, small claustrophobic sense of me that we often walk around with. So that's where we're going. And mindfulness is really, so the point is perhaps insight and transformation and change, but the tool is always, we need this skill, or we need mindfulness in order to cultivate all the other things. but then also just the cultivation of mindfulness in itself gives us tremendous benefits in terms of a greater sense of ease, less distraction, more clarity, more stability. So it's definitely worthwhile in itself, but it also has these other benefits of being very useful to develop insight and wisdom. Okay. So we've been, so far we've been using the breath as an object of meditation. And we had this, I used this metaphor of a tree where relaxation is like the roots of the tree. So the deeper we can relax, the deeper we can sink those roots of relaxation into the ground. And then focus or stability that we looked at last week, that's like the trunk of the tree. So the stable, solid trunk that then depends upon the roots of relaxation. And then today we'll look at clarity or vividness, and that's like the branches of the tree, the leaves. What's it called? The foliage, I think, in English. So, and again, I think everyone can recognize what clarity means. Do we have anyone here in here's done something like, I know we have Craig, you're a good example. You've been snowboarding and stuff like that. So have you ever been in a situation where everything has been really clear and awesome and vivid?
Very often, especially when you're in a situation where you have to really focus to avoid injury.
Yeah.
So you're a flow, you come into a flow state.
Yeah.
You forget everything else in just the moment that you're in.
And is that a nice state of mind or a horrible one?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It's the best state of mind.
Yeah, it's the best state of mind. I'm not into extreme sports or anything, so I haven't had that precise experience, but I think everyone can connect with that kind of experience where we have this brilliant vividness and clarity in our experience. And just imagine if you could, so we know that our minds already have this ability because we've had that experience already. But imagine if we could go through all of life in that with that mind, with that clarity, with that type of experience, with that quality to our experience. And I think, I'm just guessing, but with someone like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for example, I think that's how he experiences everything all the time. I'm just guessing. But I do believe that this is what we can actually cultivate and come to experience. So imagine, doing your income tax return forms with this, clear, sharp, brilliant mind. It's just, you're just focused and that doesn't happen, I think, but I think it could be possible that we can go into that. This is meeting at work with all the horrible people, but this is the mind we bring into that meeting. And imagine how that could possibly change how we experience the people and how we experience then the difficult people. So it's also a foundation for other qualities such as compassion and care for ourselves and for others. So that's like a sales pitch for this type of practice. In case you needed one, I don't know if you needed a sales pitch, but there you have it. So what? So far we've been, the first time we used the breathing, the whole whole body sensation of the breath, and we use that to cultivate relaxation. Then we moved on to observing the breathing in the belly in order to cultivate more focus and stability. And we also introduced counting. So if we're very distracted, it might be a good idea to count the breaths. So we breathing in and then counting 1 at the end of the in-breath, breathing out, and then breathing in, counting 2, and then we go up to 10, and then we start over from 1 again. And whenever we get distracted, we just go back to 1. So that can be really helpful if we get distracted. But today we'll move the object of focus up to the nostrils. So we will observe the sensations of the breathing at the nostrils. And this is a more how to say it, a more subtle object. So it might be more difficult to find the breathing and observe it here, although this is very personal. But for example, you can either observe the nostrils or just this area on the upper lip. And you might notice that when you breathe in, it becomes slightly colder because cold air is flowing in. And then when you breathe out, it becomes a little bit warmer. So there will be sensations, if you pay attention, that you can watch. And it's also like what do you call it? Like a biofeedback loop, because when you get into the meditation and you get more and more relaxed, the breathing will become more and more subtle, and then the sensations here will become smaller and smaller. So then that will require more and more attention, more and more clarity, and then you get distracted, or maybe you get annoyed with yourself, whatever, and so what happens then is the breathing gets more pronounced again. If you lose your concentration, the breathing will become more pronounced, and then it will be easier to observe the breathing here again. So it regulates itself. The more focus, then more subtle sensations, and less focus, there will be easier to observe the breathing. So it's a very good object in that way. Did you follow that? Did that make sense? Mm. Yeah. So it can be very. This sounds weird, maybe. It can be extremely interesting to observe your breathing at the nostrils. And if you get bored, don't worry. It's just something to have patience with. Okay, and also when we use this focus that is a bit more subtle, we might have a tendency to tense up. So I can't really feel it, so I'm trying harder, and you can see this in the face of people, in the forehead wrinkles and the lips purse, and so it's good to just pay attention to your face also, so that you remain relaxed, and remember that relaxation is still an extremely important foundation. So when we get too tense, you can kind of notice it in your own face. So then you can just take a moment and maybe really relax on the out breath and come back. And then when you feel like you're relaxed again, then you try to bring some more focus and clarity. And also, if sometimes if we can't feel the breath here, we try to breathe more forcefully, so we have something to observe. And so don't try to control the breath. Just let it do its thing. Don't try to breathe in any particular way. And if you happen to, if it's difficult to find something to observe, you just be patient. You will find it. And also in this practice, if you get distracted, it's good to introduce the counting, especially if there's a lot of distractions. The counting can really help to cut some of those distractions. Okay, so we'll soon go into meditation, but I had a few more pointers. But are there any questions so far? Does it make sense? You can follow the instructions this far. Okay. So then the final little hints or tips is first of all to try to remain still. So it's important to find a posture that is comfortable. And when we go into the meditation, it's perfectly okay to lie down. We talked about this before. The Shavasana or corpse posture is a very good posture for meditation. You can sit on a chair, sit on the floor. But so the reason why it's good to remain still is that if we fidget and move, or we scratch, and that is kind of feeding into distractions. So it's mostly it's easier to be less distracted if we also allow the body to really be still and really sink into relaxation. So even if we have we get a little bit bored and we have these impulses to move, see if you can just gently just observe them and allow them to pass rather than to act on them and fidget around. And having said that, if there's any pain in a knee or whatever, then just move. You can always shift position. Like, this isn't comfortable anymore. I need to sit like this. That's not a problem. It's not a competition in remaining still for the sake of it. But just see if you can limit too much movement. And then this is another thing that came up a little bit last time, is regarding expectations. So it's very, very hard not to have expectations in meditation. So I did pretty good last week. It was a pretty good meditation, and I expect that today it will be even better. I'll be slightly more focused, and then next week, if we have that kind of mind, we're setting us up for failure, because the mind, it's like the weather. Some days it's more easy to focus, other days it's very hard. So we can't judge a meditation by that standard. We just have to let go of all expectations. We don't aim for anything in particular. We just follow the instructions and then let that natural process evolve. So, and we're so used to putting pressure on ourselves and expecting results and all of that. But to the best of your ability, see if you can just drop all of that. So no expectations, no striving, just sit down and follow the instructions, and whatever happens. And on that note, it's also good to have a, and this is a tricky instruction, but to have a joyful attitude. So really allow yourself to be happy about the fact that you're actually giving yourself this opportunity to care for yourself. You've come here, you're engaging in something that brings great benefits to you and to people around you. So really remind yourself that this practice has great benefits for body and mind. You know, the simple ones like less stress and less mental affliction. We become more in control of our minds, but we also develop insight, and these are really, really good and nice things to cultivate. So also remain in contact with that and be joyful about it. And last point on that is also to bring others into the motivation for doing this. So you're not just meditating for your own benefit. You're also meditating for the benefit of everyone else, for the people, like the people in your family, your friends, your colleagues. You can really bring those, and everyone. You can make it as wide as you want, but you really bring others into your motivation as well. Otherwise, it can be a bit so it doesn't become an ego project. You know, I'm just gonna improve myself, but really keep in mind that meditation also has benefits for others, and that can sometimes help to bring more joy into the practice as well. Okay, so without any expectations whatsoever, let's do some meditation. Having found a comfortable posture, just allow your body to settle. And as an act of kindness towards yourself, you turn your attention towards yourself. You can allow your attention to just drop down into the body. Leaving a busy day of thinking and planning and hurrying about behind you. Relaxing, letting go. You can turn your attention to your face and just notice if there is any tension. Just allow your face to become completely smooth. Maybe a half smile on your lips, relaxed jaws, relaxed forehead. Relaxing the muscles around the eyes. Allowing your face to become like that of a sleeping baby. And then turning your attention to your breathing. So the full body sensations of the breath. Allowing the breathing to settle in its natural state, its natural rhythm. If you want, you can use the out breath to release, relax, let go. And also allowing your mind to settle in its natural state. Giving yourself permission not to follow each and every thought. Dropping expectations. Dropping striving. Allowing the mind to rest. And then you can move your attention to the tip of your nose and see if you can observe the breathing there. Just be curious about the physical sensations of air flowing in and out of the body. Really paying attention to subtle details. The high definition awareness. And when your attention wanders or something else comes into the foreground, sounds or thoughts or other sensations in the body, And you just release that distraction and you take the opportunity to relax. And then you gently return your attention back to the sensation of the breathing at the nostrils. Maybe using the in-breath specifically to enhance clarity. And if there are a lot of distractions, you might want to add the counting. And also check to see that you're not tensing up, clamping down. Pay attention to your face, your body, and see if there is tension. And if there is, see if you can release it and relax. But also if there is dullness, if your experience is not very clear or sharp, see if you can increase clarity, vividness. Maybe like turning up a dimmer in a room.